Welcome to the Cruising is Life podcast. Whether you're a seasoned cruiser or just starting out, we have something for everyone. So sit back, relax, and get ready to set sail with us on the Cruising is Life podcast.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Cruising is Life podcast. We're back with another weekly episode. We're 3 weeks in a row. We're doing good. We're back on track with our weekly episodes. But once again, joined by Tyler here. Welcome back.
What's going on, everyone? Thanks for having me, Brandon. It's good to be back on track, keeping the podcast heading on a straight course towards success of weekly episodes. So glad to be back.
Yes, sir. My cat even wants to be in an episode today, too.
Hey, look at that. Our new co-host, Brandon's cat.
Our newest co-host, Belle.
Belle the cat.
But yeah, today, so I recently just got off of the Wonder of the Seas. This is actually my second time on board the ship. But today we're pretty much here to review the ship. I'm going to give all of my thoughts of my experiences on board. And then, of course, Tyler is here to ask all the questions as well. So, but yeah, without further ado, just a quick little rundown. Is it even working? Yeah, it is working. Okay. It was showing YouTube was all over the place. But yeah, so a quick rundown. This was the three-night cruise on board Wonder of the Seas out of the Port of Miami. That's her new home port. She recently just transitioned down from the 7 nights out of Port Canaveral with the arrival of Star of the Seas. So this is her brand new home port, kind of her brand new audience and brand new life down here in the Port of Miami.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see the ship transition. Of course, that happened once Star of the Seas came out, when it was relieved of the 7 nights out of Canaveral. That's really cool to see. And I've heard really good thoughts about it. So I'm really curious to dive into what your trip was. And you've been on Utopia recently, right? So you kind of know the difference. I'm kind of later in the podcast, once we get through your majority of the cruise, kind of dive in and say, what's the difference in terms of home port? What's going on with that? So I'm excited to talk about that as well, Brandon.
Yes, and that's kind of the cool thing about this particular, I guess, sailing, is that I sailed on Utopia. My most recent cruise before Wonder was the Utopia. So I kind of got to compare these two back to back almost, which was really fun. Not intentional, but it worked out. It's really nice.
So I think we should dive into the questions here. Let's before we even get to you traveling to the port, we got to go kind of dive into the fact you talked about you've sailed Utopia recently. Why on earth did you decide to take this trip in the first place? And why did you choose the weekend cruise specifically? Was it scheduling? Was it anything specifically? And again, why did you pick this ship out of anyone?
It's this particular cruise was because my mom texted me saying, "Hey, family cruise. This is the dates. We booked it. Here's your booking number." So I didn't necessarily have a choice, but I was not going to complain. So, but yeah, that was kind of it wasn't necessarily it wasn't my plan, but at the same time, it was a family cruise. So, that was kind of the thing, but I'm of course glad to go. The way I worded that was weird, but yeah, we had a great time regardless, but it was cool. It was nice. Just have a little family cruise. We usually do one once a year.
Okay, good deal. So y'all booked the cruise. You're in Orlando, Wonder of the Seas now. It was in Orlando. Now it's not. It's in Port Miami. So getting down to there, you really have two options. Well, three, technically speaking, if you're going to fly, but that's a really short flight. Don't know people do it. So let's talk about it.
I'd try it.
How did you get to the Wonder of the Seas? I mean, yes, people do these flights from Orlando to Miami all the time, but there's a new option in town, Brightline. Did you take the Brightline? What'd you do? Drive Brightline? What happened?
So yes, I did Brightline. It's not my first time Brightlining for a cruise, which was nice. So not my first rodeo there, but it was really cool to do Brightline again. It's nice, very convenient. We caught I think it was the 7:20 a.m. train. We arrived right about 10:30, 10:45 or so. No delays.
Okay.
The train was not fed that morning, so we're good. We made it and no issues.
Yeah, when the train gets fed, folks, it's not a fun time. Your whole travel plans are thrown off, and especially if it's a cruise, not the best thing. But luckily, I haven't seen in the news too much recently.
Yeah, the Brightline's a hungry train for those track snacks.
Oh, yes. Vroom. 80 miles an hour.
Yep.
So
But
let's
yeah,
talk
it
about you. Once you get
was
to the Miami station, did y'all take an Uber? How'd that happen? Getting from the
yes.
Miami station to the ship.
Yeah, just kind of like what we've done in the past with ship spotting as well, and kind of what we did with Seascape is the last time I did Brightline for it. But yeah, we arrived. We just ordered an Uber off of the app. It was nice, quick, and easy. And then pretty much by the time we made it down to that lower level, we got the Uber was pulling up, and it was pretty much all from there. We headed straight to the ship.
Okay, that's a good deal. So y'all
Yeah,
sit out of Cruise Terminal A in Miami. What's
correct.
your impressions of the terminal? I know this is not your first time, far from it, sailing from that terminal, but was everything smooth? Were you able to get on the ship with, good enough speed? Any slowdowns? I know parking's been an issue recently. Of course, y'all Ubered, but did y'all see any of that happen for other folks? We can talk about that for who may be driving to the port.
So taking the train, we didn't have any parking issues, obviously, but that is a funny thing that you mentioned that because about noon or so, which was not far after boarding started, everybody got a ping on their phone or through the Royal Caribbean app saying, "Hey, parking lot in Terminal A is full. Please use parking lot or the cruise terminal double A for parking." So MSC actually came in clutch and provided some extra parking over there, which is crazy to think about. Like it's only what all sails out of A. It's Icon, Wonder, and they're camping more than like one other ship that sails out of A consistently.
I think Freedom does. Does it like alternate between the AAA and double A?
Yeah, I know she uses AAA. I don't know if she alternates between there and double A or in with there and A or not, but yeah,
Okay.
crazy though. And that was right when boarding started, so most people probably had to park over at Terminal Double A.
Crazy. And those are it's a big garage, folks. It's not by any means a tiny garage. I mean, of
Huge.
course, compared to AAA, it's not that big, but still, it's not nothing small by any means. So that's an interesting note to talk about. Okay, so we talked about you said getting on board the ship. No really major complaints. Headed straight on board. Let's talk about you get on board. What's the first thing you do? Is it the muster drill? We getting some food? What's up?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we went straight to the buffet. Actually, what we did is we got on board, went to the buffet, and we sat down and we were like, the options weren't that great, or at least we didn't see anything that was overly exciting. But as soon as we all sat down with something, we all said, "Why didn't we just go to El Loco Fresh?" So we took a couple bites out of what we did get, and then we went upstairs to El Loco Fresh and grabbed something there, and that was fantastic.
Man, you gotta go to El Loco Fresh, dude. That's
Hmm.
like one of the greatest free casual options on board. That place always
Absolutely.
slaps. Amazing quality in the food.
Hmm.
Okay, so we got on board here. So you around 11, 12 o'clock here. You have a little bit of time before sailaways. Uh, Cabins opened up around 1. What kind of cabin did y'all get on board the Wonder of the Seas for this cruise?
Yes, so we actually had, and I just posted the tour of my cabin earlier today, but I had the Central Park interior cabin, which I always forget
Okay.
even exists. So it's the window cabin on deck number 9. There's a set of windows right above Central Park where you're walking through, and that is one of those cabins. We had one of the first few, but that's the cabin I had. It was really cool actually to try that out.
Okay. That's awesome to hear, Brandon. I mean, I've sailed in Central Park. Really cool set of balconies. What
Hmm.
floor were you on? Of course, folks, check the video out. It tells you all this information. But for the folks who haven't checked the video out, what floor were you on? I'm curious.
9. But that's the only one that has
9.
the
Okay.
row. Yeah, the only row of windows for the window cabins, I guess, for Central Park is through deck number 9.
Okay.
Because deck 10
Okay.
is where the Central Park balconies start.
Okay.
I think it was
I've
what,
had a
10
Central Park
through
balcony
14 or
before.
something like that.
Sounds about right. Yeah, I had the
Yeah.
deck 14 balcony on the Wonder before. I
Oh,
wasn't the
cool.
biggest fan. It was right above the pool deck, which was crazy. And of
Yeah.
course, you had a window, so it wasn't the same problem. But we were right above the pool deck, and if you opened the balcony, you could hear it. It's like crazy loud. But then as soon as you
Hmm.
shut it, really good sound suppression in the room here. So we moved forwards to sailaways here. Let's talk about your sailaway experience here on board the Wonder of the Seas. Where'd you go? What happened? What time did y'all leave? Are y'all leaving at 1500? Did you leave at 1600? What time of day does the Wonder leave? And were you first out?
We were first out, which is surprising. Carnival ended up being really late that day. Conquest had a 3:30 departure, and she ended up leaving at 4, but she had to go down and spin around in the basin. So that one didn't
Okay.
happen. But I actually did do a live stream. I've been live streaming a lot more on this channel, like with departures and stuff like that, which was fun. So I did get to do that and catch some of that from, or I guess on live stream, which is neat. But I was posted up at my parents' balcony, which they were actually across the hall from me in a mini suite. So that was a huge cabin and a huge balcony, which is really cool. But we had a great view.
Okay,
We're pretty mid-level too, so we weren't too high. There was no overhang, that was blocking the view or anything like that. We were right at midship, so it was a fantastic view. And knowing the tall glass that's all around the top of the new Oasis Class ships, it was like, honestly, the balcony's kind of the best spot.
right. I mean, it's really cool to seeing those balconies on this class of ship, especially how, as you said, that there's only really that as like the best view to see sailaways. I mean, you're kind of limited from the pool deck. So that's one thing I,
Mhm.
I do say. This is not really a whole ship like review in terms of like this stinks, but this seems to be the trend with the new Oasis classes. They're terrible for getting shots of the ocean. For us content creators, even just people looking out to see things, you
Mhm.
have this huge glass, and even the other spots, there's not much windows connected to the ocean. So that's, as you said, something interesting to note about this class of ship.
Yeah, I love Wonder and Utopia. They're technically the best. On paper, they're the best Oasis class, but
Right.
I think my favorite tends to lean towards Oasis or maybe even Symphony, just because they do have the lower railings to where it's a little bit more, I guess, easy as far as taking photos, of the cruise. You're not looking through a tall glass panel.
That's something that I would run into in terms of that class of ship, or agree with Brandon, I should say, is that I love the Harmony and Symphony. Those are my favorite. Again, this is not a Harmony Symphony of the Seas review, but it's something I would say that's, on
Hmm.
paper, yes, the Harmony, the Wonder and the Utopia are better, but
Hmm.
as Brandon says, for content creation side, it's better. So let's talk about it. You sailed through the night to Coco Cay. I believe that was your first port. Before that, anything eventful happened on the first night of the cruise? Did you experience any of the nightlife on board the ship? What kind of happened that first night? And then take us into your arrival into Coco. Were you guys first and things like that nature?
Yeah, first night of the cruise, we actually went to the main dining room throughout this cruise, which was nice. It was a different change, or it was a change from what we normally do. With these short cruises, we normally don't go to the main dining room at all. Just it's easier just to go to the buffet, grab some food. You don't need to sit down and waste time in the dining room and all that. But we went to the dining room this time around. It was a nice family dinner each night, and the first night was prime rib, fantastic, so good.
Wow.
The hot take here is that the prime rib on a lot of ships, it's like always hit or miss. Usually they don't get it right. It's always either undercooked or it's just not the best. But this time around on Wonder, the prime rib was 10 out of 10.
Okay, that's good to hear, man. That's
Yeah.
good to hear.
Other than that, we had some of the shows scheduled or booked. We ended up not going to any of them. This was our second time on this ship, so we've seen it before. And with 3 nights, it's tough to see everything within the span of 3 nights. So it kind of came down to, all right, we don't have a whole lot of time. Why don't we just do this instead of that? So we kind of just hung around the ship a little bit for the first night, enjoyed the vibes on board, and something that we ended up doing just like as a family, because again, family cruise. Every night throughout the cruise, we'd sit down before bed and we'd all watch South Park on the TV, which is hilarious. It was the
Are
funniest. It was hilarious.
That's awesome. I love South
Yeah.
Park, by the way. Great show. So that's cool. So, as I said, let's transition now to your arrival into Coco Cay. How did that take place? Were you guys first? What time were you alongside the dock? I know you guys, you're up, for arrivals and stuff. So how did that all transpire?
Arrivals was great. It was, nice. It wasn't chilly, but it wasn't, it wasn't hot or anything like that. We had that cold front that had recently come through the Florida area. So it wasn't overly hot or anything like that. So the weather was overall very good throughout the entire cruise. But we arrived I think we came along the dock around 7 a.m. Coco Cay was really cool and a little unexpected. So we were docked with Allure of the Seas, which that was kind of the first real week or so that she's even been back here in Florida, or I guess in the United States, really, since her big dry dock update. So this was my
Right.
first time seeing Allure ever since she had been redone. I don't know what it is. She basically looks exactly like Oasis, but in my head, for some reason, she looks so much better than Oasis did when they did Oasis dry dock. I don't know what it is. It makes zero sense because they literally are identical. Something about it.
That's
But
interesting to note. That's interesting.
yeah, I don't. Again, it makes no sense. So ignore it. But yeah.
Right.
But it was cool though. I mean, I got some really good footage of her coming in. So to my surprise, they pulled in to Coco Cay, which is kind of not a
Okay.
first, but actually the first time I've seen Allure do it specifically. But they don't do that very often. But over the last like three months or so, they've been doing it a lot for some reason. I don't know why or like what goes in to the planning and things like that they will pull into the port. But yeah,
We'll bow in. Okay. Interesting
yeah.
stuff.
Made for some cool content though, especially like out on the island because she was the one closest to the island. So like over the bridge, like going over that bridge in Coco, we got some really good photos of her, in that new look. So I'm not complaining.
Okay. I mean, that's cool seeing her go bow in. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really, really special there. So let's talk about Coco Cay. You got off sometime during the day. What did y'all do in Coco Cay? I've heard some rumblings. It was pretty relaxing. Is that true? Is that the case?
Yeah, it was. So actually, as we first came off the ship, got all my footage. Also, another surprise for the day was that, as we came in, Great Stirrup Key is, of course, right next door. Literally, I mean, right in plain sight. There's a lot of construction going on with there because of all the upgrades that they're doing. But we had Norwegian Prima there next to us. But as I was coming off of the ship and starting to take photos of, Wonder and Allure, I look over and I'm like, why does, like, obviously this is a Prima class, but the Prima doesn't have red hull paint. And then I was just thinking to myself, wait a second, that's the Aqua. And then I look just to the right of that, and Prima's sitting there as well. So we ended up with two different Prima class ships sitting right next door. So it was a double Oasis and a double Prima class, which was really neat.
Wow.
First time I've seen two Prima class together like that. So I'll take it. From a ship spotting, ship nerd standpoint, I was thriving.
That's awesome.
But so I got some really good footage of those two, and of course our ships as well. But then we actually had one of the day beds in Coco Cay, which was nice. Wasn't our first time doing that. I think we did it on Icon last year. We had the South Beach day bed, which was nice. On Icon, Rover was out playing around, so we were playing with Rover a little bit that day. So we didn't get to do that this time around because Icon was not with us, but. Yeah, it was a nice little relaxing day on South Beach. Just hung out. It's just I don't remember the actual cost, but I know it's a couple $100. It is a little on the expensive side, but it's nice because you get your own little private little day bed to relax on. You get some loungers. You get a cooler with some waters in it and all that type of stuff.
Okay. awesome to hear. I mean, I've got the not the day beds, but I've got one of those cabanas, which is somewhat similar, and
Yeah,
for
yeah.
a water park, really super cool, relaxing experience here. That's good to
Mhm.
hear as you had one as well.
Yeah, I've done the South Beach cabanas before. That's really nice. Those are even more expensive. But yeah, the cabanas are very nice. But if you're not wanting to kind of splurge and go all out and try to do the cabanas, trying to save a little bit of money there, then the day beds are a nice little cheaper alternative.
Right. They're super cool and relaxing, and
Yeah.
that's cool about Coco Cay, right? You can get these cool upgrades, or you just have a fun free time. So there's always
Mhm.
a good time. Some would say a perfect day at Coco Cay. I mean, it's true. I mean, I'm not trying to be cheesy with the marketing, but it's true. I've always had a perfect
Yeah.
day there. So, how about you, Brent? But it's always been great.
Yeah. I always love it. I mean, this is my, I don't even know, probably like 12th or 13th time going to Coco Cay, and it still doesn't get boring. I may not do all the fun, exciting stuff every single time, just because, that does add up with expenses. But at the same time,
Right.
like I've always had a very good time no matter what I do, whether it be the Hideaway Beach Club or the Thrill Water Park, the South Beach Cabanas, or if it's just, a free day where I'm walking around the island or hanging out in Oasis Lagoon. Like there's always something to do in Coco Cay.
Always is, that is for sure. I've done a good portion of everything on the island. There's still so much to discover at Coco
Mm.
Cay, so that's really awesome to hear. Where'd you eat for lunch? Did you go back to the ship? Did you eat on the island? Did because the day beds are they at the cabanas where they have an attendant that gives you food and stuff? How does that work? Is that something that's the day beds offer?
So there's a button there. We've never used it, but there's a button there, technically, like the cabanas, where you can page somebody to come and I guess so. Technically, yes. We just never tried it.
Okay.
But it's the same button that they have in the cabanas to having to have the attendant come out for you. So to my knowledge, yes. But we just opted to do it ourselves. But we did, of course, we have to do the snack shack. So
You
we
have
got,
to. You have to,
yeah,
man.
yep. So we
It's a Coco Cay must.
grabbed ourselves one of our little diamond drinks and grabbed ourselves a chicken sandwich and mozzarella sticks and had a nice little lunch out on the island.
That's awesome to hear. I love the Snack Shack. Absolutely the best food on the island. Even the buffet's
Hmm.
pretty good too, which is
Absolutely.
crazy. Which is what I'm so crazy about. The buffet on the island is oftentimes better than the quality on the ship, which is the same food and sometimes the same chefs making the
That's
food. So
always
that's
baffled
always
me.
I'm like,
So
"What? It's the
funny.
same food. How?"
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know what it is, but they amazing on the island. So, and it's not just the island vibes. It's true. It's that great food here. So,
Hmm.
let's now move forwards. You get back on board the Wonder of the Seas. Y'all, I mean, yeah, you're back on the Wonder of the Seas. I was thinking Utopia for a second, but you're back on the Wonder and
I
you're
always kept
sailing.
saying Utopia in the vlogs. I always said Utopia because it's the same thing essentially, and
It
I
is.
was
It
just
is.
on Utopia, so
Ship.
just out of habit, I do the same on Seascape. I called it Seashore a couple times. I don't all these cruises just run together, man. You do 6 a year, and it you just don't know where you're at.
Oh, I get those confused, those 2 MSC ships confused all the time. So
Hmm.
no hard feelings there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you get back on board the Wonder of the Seas. It's sail away time. Were y'all first out that day? How did that work? And then in terms of sailing to Nassau, how did that happen? Did y'all go further out to go back? Because Nassau to Cocoa isn't a far route. So,
Yeah.
and then what time was your arrival into Nassau? 3 questions. Let's hit them.
So we were the first ones out. It was a 5 o'clock departure as per usual. Um, so pretty much right at 5. We weren't behind by any means. Pretty much all lines dropped at 5 o'clock, and we were out the door. We headed out to sea. I think we stayed within the general area. I know sometimes, like on Utopia, we went way out into the Atlantic and then came back in, between our days. But with this one, we kind of just hung out, kind of in I want to say it's the Grand Bahama Island,
Okay.
but hung around in that area. And then we had a 9 a.m. arrival. Actually, we were the last ones in. We had a 9 a.m. arrival into Nassau the next morning.
Really, 9 a.m. Would This is the funny part, Brandon. I'm not sure if you remember this, but back before even the Mariner, so this is a while back in terms of 3 and 4 night
Oh
cruises.
gosh.
When it was the Majesty, and I think the Enchantment.
Hmm.
Forgive me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
folks, but they used to be in Nassau super early in the morning, and they would stay until like 2 a.m. Now
Yep.
that's no longer a thing, which is crazy because again, it used to be the thing. They used to stay in Nassau. Even on the 3 night cruises, they would come in at like 6 a.m. from Canaveral. So they would sail from Canaveral,
Yeah.
get in Nassau at 6 a.m. and not leave until 2 a.m. Be at Cocoa at 6, and then leave Cocoa at 5. And that was back when Cocoa was a tender port, but still, it's kind of crazy how they changed. And now it's, as you said, 9 a.m. And you guys probably left
Yeah.
at 2, 3.
We left at 4, which
Oh, okay, okay.
4 p.m. departure out of Nassau. You're gonna be back in Miami by the end of the night. So, it's so random to leave that early, but but it was a nice day though. It was a lot of ships there. Freedom of the Seas did not go there that day as she was scheduled
Oh,
to, but we had Norwegian Encore show up, which was cool. She was actually on a charter cruise. That's why she didn't show up on the schedule. But it was really always cool to see her. I don't get very many opportunities to see the Encore. I've only seen her maybe a handful of times, so it was really nice to get a lot of footage, not only vertical for TikTok and Facebook, but also of course here for YouTube as well. So it's the ship spotting standpoint, like and my audience probably knows me a lot by this point. Like I see a ship in port, or sometimes I'll book a cruise to see a certain ship in port just so I can get footage of it. So,
right.
but I love stuff like that. We also had Radiance of the Seas. For some reason, I'm dying to go on that ship right now. I'd love to sail on the Radiance. I haven't tried that class yet. But it was nice to see her. And then we had the Holland America Zuiderdam there with us.
Okay. Okay. So a pretty packed house at the Port of Nassau. That's good to
Yeah.
hear.
Nothing
Your
crazy,
docked
but at the
next.
same time, some pretty good ships, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Some really good ships. Again, as you said, nothing
Mhm.
crazy, but still some really unique ships like the Encore and
Yeah.
the Holland America ship. So that's cool to see. Uh, where were you in Nassau in terms of docks? Were you at the pier facing the new, uh, not Hideaway Beach? Is that Hideaway Beach? Is that what they're calling it? Or
Royal
Beach
Beach
Club?
Club.
Royal Beach Club. That's it. That's the
Yeah.
word. Were you looking at that? How's the progress? They can be open at the end of the month.
Yeah, so again, my parents had the mini suite across the hall, and the way we were docked and positioned, we got a clear view of everything going on over there. So as far as it opening up on time, I mean, I'm trusting Royal that they will, but visually speaking, it looked like they had a lot of work to do within the span of 2 weeks, because it does open at the end of the month, or I guess the beginning of December, like you mentioned. But all the buildings are vertical. They're kind of that, and there were trees planted and things like that. I could even see the pool is basically ready to go, if not already filled. Like so
Okay.
there's a lot of progress that's been made, and I think it's probably about. I mean, it looked to be about 80 to 90% done. It's just looking at it, it looked crazy to think that it was going to be open in 2 weeks, but I trust Royal to get it done. I think it'll be fine.
Oh, 100%.
But it
Royal's
looked
pretty
amazing.
pretty good at getting things done. Oh, I mean, I've seen pictures, Brandon, and I
Yeah.
tell you, if it's for the right price, I'm looking forward to attending. That place looks
Mhm.
phenomenal. And I'm not really
I
a
know.
beach club guy, but this place looks like something that brings new life into Nassau, and that's something I'm super excited to see and witness here.
Your camera quality, it's so bad. Sorry, I just
Folks, do
it's
stand by.
it's
We
so
are
funny.
streaming in a dorm where a bunch of other random people are using all the Wi-Fi, and
So funny. I
it's
just
not
like
the yeah,
I
I
saw
know.
it go from like decent to just looked like a potato. I was like, I caught me off guard. That was so funny. But
Oh, I
anyways,
know, folks. It's a
um,
disgrace.
yes, I do want to try the Royal Beach Club. I know it does seem to be fairly expensive to go there, which is quite unfortunate. But I think Royal does a really good job with their beach club type experiences. Of course, it's just a little mini Coco Cay on that thin strip of land right there. That's if I decide to do Radiance soon, which I'm hoping I get to. I had a lot of expenses this month, but I would like to try it out. If I do Radiance, maybe I'll try to get over there into the Royal Beach Club for that.
Yeah, that'd be cool if you can get on the Radiance, get on the Royal Beach Club. That'd be cool content-wise to seeing that. So
Right.
let's go shift back to the Wonder of the Seas now. Back on board. Did you first before did you even get off in Nassau besides getting content, or did you walk around the port? I assume for content-wise, but besides content, did you
Yes.
explore Nassau or just straight back to the?
We went. So yeah, I took a bunch of pictures and videos of the ships and stuff like that. We went through a bunch of the shops at least, kind of checked out the new port area that opened up, a couple years ago. So that was always nice to walk through there. I have to say, especially compared to what it used to be, Nassau is a lot nicer than it was, pre-COVID. So it's always nice to at least walk around the shops that are in that protected port area. We didn't leave the port necessarily. Like, you can kind of just walk out the gate and go out into the actual city of Nassau. But we didn't do that. We just stayed within the port confinements there with all the port shopping and everything there. So we did do a little bit of shopping, but nothing too crazy. We didn't go out on any adventures or anything like that.
Okay, that's very, very interesting to hear. So now let's go ahead and talk when you get back on board the Wonder of the Seas. How would y'all play in terms of departure? Were y'all first out? How did that all pan out?
We were unfortunately the first ones out. We were the last ones in, first ones out, which kind of a bummer. I was hoping to get some good, sail away footage. Or actually, no, we weren't the first ones out. Encore was. She left at like 2 p.m.
Wow.
She left really early, and it's funny because it caught me off guard because she wasn't on the schedule, so because of the charter, so we didn't really know when she was
Right.
leaving. I'm sitting in the Aqua Theater. It's just probably like 2 o'clock or so. We're having a coffee and hanging out in the Aqua Theater, and I hear a ship's horn go off, and I'm like, that's odd. Just randomly go off at 2 p.m. So I go over and look, and lo and behold, the Encore is pushing off the dock. So I ended up watching the sail away for her underneath the Aqua Theater there, because like by the time I got down to the, to that little place in the back, she just shifted to start going forward. So I was like, oh my gosh,
Okay.
like I'm glad I checked.
Interesting, man. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's so early.
So the charter cruise was the reason she came to Nassau, right? Why she was not on the schedule. Okay.
Yeah, to my knowledge, yeah.
Okay. Oh, interesting. That's a really early departure too.
It
Dang.
is. I've never heard of a 2 p.m. departure before, but I guess, it's probably, I don't know where she was going actually. I'd have to go back and double check to see where she was actually headed to, but yeah, very random to leave Nassau at 2 p.m.
Okay, that's awesome. 2 p.m. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk about here. So, you're departing here. You're taking departure. Let's talk about that night on board. So, when you get back on board the Wonder of the Seas, you're setting sail. You're off the dock. What did y'all do for dinner that night after sailaways? What went down there?
So pretty much right after sailaways, we had the 6:30, 6:45 dining time. So by the time we came out and left the port and kind of sailed away for a little bit, by that point it was already about 6 o'clock. So got back to the room, showered, got cleaned up, ready for dinner. And it was Italian night in the main dining room, so we went back to the main dining room again. I got myself a nice little thing of chicken parm, which was fantastic. Yeah, dinner in the main dining room was fantastic. I couldn't recommend it enough here on Wonder of the Seas. It was really, I don't know why I want to say unexpected, because I would expect good food out of it, but yeah, I had a pretty solid experience in the main dining room.
That's good to hear. I mean, I've heard hit and miss from the dining room, right?
Yeah.
I've been on cruises where it's been just okay and then really good. So, especially nowadays, when they changed the menu and changed how everything operates, it's been a lot more of it's okay. So that's good to hear that it was good.
Right.
You said you all went on a specialty dining during this cruise. Is that correct? Did y'all go anywhere?
Yes. So the following night, I guess Nassau, duh. It was Coco where we went back to the main dining room for the chicken parm. But Nassau, yes, we did go. All the days run together. It was so fast of a cruise. But yes, so we did go to Chops Grill that night for the steakhouse, and that was amazing. I always love going to Chops Grill. I think that was we were gonna try to do Azumi Hibachi, but we just couldn't get any reservations for it. It was tough. It's always very, very busy and hard to get reservations for Azumi. But yeah, Chops Grill was very, very good. Our waiter was very nice, very attentive, always checking in on us. The food was
Yeah, that's good to hear.
fantastic. Um, what did I have for my starter? I'm trying to think. I know I had the fillet as my main course. The fillet was incredible as usual, as expected. And then I had the chocolate cake for dessert, and the chocolate cake, you know, gives Carnival a run for their money with the warm melting cake that they have. But yeah, dinner overall was very, very good in Chops Grill.
Okay, that's good to hear. I mean, I've had hit and miss with the fillet, so that's good to hear you had a really good fillet.
Yeah, I've
I mean,
noticed
I've
that
had
too.
it.
Sometimes it's, it depends. And that's the funny thing. Like sometimes like doing these reviews and reviewing a ship, or like you hear a bad review of a ship, it doesn't necessarily mean anything as far as like, will you have a good time? Will you have a bad time? Like I've been on, I was on a ship, this particular year, I was on the same ship in August and September. I had a
Okay.
very good experience. The food was very, very good in August. And then I went in September again, not nearly as good. The service wasn't as good. And that was literally 3 weeks apart. Like, you know, it can vary from week to week, with whatever they got supplied with, from the ports or just staffing changes and stuff like that. It can all be random, but overall, yeah, I had a very good experience with dining and just overall food with Port Canaveral, or not Port Canaveral, with Wonder of the Seas.
That's awesome to hear. And again, that's as I said, it's always hit and miss, but that's good to hear that it was solid this time around. So moving forwards here, you're sailing back to Miami. Let's talk about debark here. What did y'all do for debark? What time was your train back to Orlando, and how did that all play out here?
Yeah, and actually, real quick, since we're kind of getting towards
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
end of the questions part of it, anybody that's here watching live, drop some questions in the chat if you want me to answer any questions about Wonder of the Seas, or any questions you may have about some of the places on board. Let me know in the chat. That way we can come to those here in just a few minutes. But yes, debark day was pretty quick and easy, as to be expected with Royal Caribbean, especially with these Oasis Class ships. Um, we docked a little late, which was kind of unexpected. Usually, these Oasis Class ships will dock like super early in the morning, around 4 a.m. or so. But we ended up, I think we officially docked at about 6:30, and then, but the ship was cleared and ready to go for debark by, I think it was 7:30 or so.
Okay.
We had a very early Brightline train back to Orlando that morning. We decided to risk it. Not always the most recommended thing to do, but with it being right next to the port, it always makes it very easy. So we did get an early train. We had an 8:45 train that morning, and we ended up waiting at the terminal for it.
Oh, that's good.
We could have gotten the train beforehand, which was, I think, a 7:45 or a 7:50 train. We pulled up. We would have had about 5 minutes to get through security and get checked in and everything like that. So we were like, you know what, we'll just hang out and wait for the next one. So since that was what we had, but yeah, we got there very early. If you are willing to take the risk, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But if you're willing to take the risk, you can usually catch a pretty early Brightline train. Getting to the airport is a little different story, because there's a lot more involved with flying and getting. The airport's not nearly as close either. But as far as the Brightline, it was a very nice, quick, easy experience. Debark. Once debark started, it was pretty much over and done with within a few minutes. They have the facial recognition systems. That way, you kind of just walk up, scans your face, and you're out the door. And we do self-assist, so we didn't have any bags to pick up or anything like that. And so, we just kind of carried our suitcases off, and we were on our way.
That's awesome to hear, Brandon. I've had, as I said, experiences. We've always had to book around the getting off the ship with we never do Brightline, but still, I know how it is with scheduling and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's good to hear everything was quick and smooth getting off the Wonder of the Seas. Train ride back was good, so that's good to
Mhm.
hear. Any final closing thoughts in terms of the part of the trip? We'll talk about the ship here in a second, but any parts of the whole, day by day you want to kind of say in closing?
Um, I mostly want to touch on Brightline real quick because I know and this really only
Absolutely.
applies to locals. I guess if you're in the Orlando area and you're cruising out of Miami, it's really nice and easy to take. And sometimes and you factor in gas, you factor in parking. Sometimes the Brightline train could be cheaper to take, and obviously it's a lot more convenient as well. Our upcoming cruise, this is the second time we've done it. We did it on not Norwegian, MSC Seascape earlier this year, and then of course did it this time around. Both times were pretty much hassle-free, no issues. So my next cruise out of Miami is the brand new Norwegian Luna, and I think
Oh, okay.
that one I think we're gonna probably plan to do the Brightline as well, just because of how easy it's been. And plus with a week-long cruise, the parking in Miami is going to rack up pretty quickly. So,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, Miami is far from
very
being
expensive.
cheap in terms of parking. It's like $20 a day or something. It's ridiculous. Maybe 30 a
Yeah,
day. I don't even know. It's pricey. I know that
yeah,
much.
$20 or $25 a day to park in Miami. So yeah, I mean with a week-long cruise, you're going to spend well over $100, almost $200 in parking.
200 in parking. Holy cow.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
But
Yeah, I can
yeah,
afford train tickets aren't that pricey. Yeah, anyhow, go ahead, Brandon.
right. But overall, I mean, the ship was fantastic. I think, and the thing with these 3 and 4 night cruises is, the consistent turnaround days, every several days, and rather than doing full weeks and stuff like that, it could wear out the ship. And I think the ship didn't necessarily feel worn out, but you could tell it's definitely, you know, it's getting beat up a little bit just from the crowd, from the turnaround days, just a variety of different things. And she's also now she came on 22, so she's coming up on her 5-year dry dock in about a year and a half. So, she's coming up to the point where she's going to be scheduled for her routine maintenance pretty soon. But she didn't feel out of shape or anything like that. But you could definitely tell, it may be the 3 and 4 nights in Miami are a little tough on the ship, But overall, everything was very nice, well maintained, very clean.
Okay.
The crew on Royal are always constantly cleaning and always making sure the ships are in top shape. So the ship felt good. Here and there, you'd get a weird smell, but other than that, I think she's a
Weird
fantastic ship.
smell.
Yeah,
Jeez.
sometimes you just walk through a hallway on a ship and you're just like, just
Hmm.
random. But I wouldn't say it was, one random smell made the entire cruise terrible. You know what I mean?
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting to hear some thoughts about the Wonder of the Seas here. Beautiful ship. I sailed her. Not my favorite in the class. I personally had some odd experiences with her. Let's talk about this. This is some things I note. Let's see if you
Hmm.
even noticed this. One thing I noticed when she was doing 7 nights out of Canaveral, that ship was super weird in the way she was ran. Kind of ran in a totally different way in terms of shipboard operations. What I mean by that is they closed, which was really weird. They closed pretty much every deck except the promenade and like the casino by 10 o'clock at night, which for on a ship is not that late. I mean, they had the sports deck, so basically from where the El Loco Fresh from that elevator bank, all that was closed. Basically from the arcade, that back area was closed. I mean, they had security guards patrolling it. It was crazy.
Wow.
Pool deck too. They were security guards the whole time. The second was twice. This was in two different years. So this wasn't,
Wow.
2 cruises back to back, which was interesting. And then Central Park was open, but the boardwalk, same thing, closed. Security guards patrolling
Hmm.
it. It was a really weird experience. Do you notice any of that in terms of not super late night, just
No,
9, 10 o'clock at night?
no, actually, when even my sailing on Wonder back in 2023 for us, the 7 night, they actually had the sports stuff opened up late. They were doing the zip line. They were doing the zip line after dark. They were doing the Ultimate Abyss after dark. And I noticed the same here with this one. It seems, it seemed to have a decent amount of nightlife. Things were still active and going on late at night. So, but that
That's
is
crazy then
interesting.
that happened to me twice. Yeah, it happened to me twice, which I thought was a one-off, but
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was just because
That
I
is
was like
weird.
busy sailing with kids or something. But no, it happened twice. Super
Yeah.
weird.
I do
But
see a question in the chat. Is there a martini bar on Wonder? Really enjoyed the one on Allure. So there's several different places, but if I'm guessing correctly here, it's the one on Central Park, the Trellis Bar. But if that's the case, then yes, that Trellis Bar, that small one that's on Central Park on Allure, Wonder actually has a much bigger one, located a little bit more in the center of and kind of against the wall rather than along the pathway. But yes, there is a martini bar in the middle of Central Park. There's also a few other places that you can grab martinis throughout the ship. I know I think my mom went to the Irish pub down on the Royal Promenade. Was able to get an espresso martini there. So yeah, there's definitely several places throughout the ship where you can grab yourself a nice little cocktail at the end of the night.
okay, good deal in terms of that. I mean, again, that's something interesting watching. Wonder has the bionic bar still, where this pesky
She
parrot is, so
does.
that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is that this was probably the most active I've ever seen the Bionic bar. Is people are actually using it a
Really?
lot. I mean, I always like to go at least once, just to try it out, just to check it out. It's a cool experience. At the end of the day, like, might be gimmicky and, not the most, crazy thing in the world like it was back in 2014 on Quantum. But I always like to go do it. It's cool. I think, do I prefer Pesky Parrot over the Bionic Bar? Yes. I think the drink selection is a little bit better, and, there's a little bit cooler vibe in there with the tropical, like, South Pacific Hawaiian type of theming to it all and everything. So in that case, I do kind of prefer the Pesky Parrot over the Bionic Bar, but I always thought the Bionic Bar is a really cool experience overall.
I mean, I thought they were really cool, but as you said, it's kind of like you've seen it once. It's it. It's kind of
Right.
it's a gimmick, but it's kind of like okay.
And that's kind of the
But
thing is like, once it came out on Quantum, it was a huge hit, the Bionic Bar, and that's why they put it on Harmony and Symphony and even all the way up to Wonder. But, I think as, after like the first few years of it all, it died down in popularity. Like the repeat cruisers, like, all right, I've already done this. It's like not a huge deal. It's like not that crazy or anything like that. But, if you're first time cruisers, you'll probably find there a little bit more often.
right, I mean that's kind of the cool thing about the Utopia and the Wonders. Well, especially now what the ships are doing. Those ships are kind of built for the first time cruisers, meaning that they're wow, this is what Royal Caribbean is.
Right.
That's kind of cool that they have some of this stuff. But I mean, the Pesky Parrot I like a lot better than the Bionic Bar. Just I think
Mhm.
it's more repeatable, and plus it fits the vibe of those ships in the Caribbean. Not
Yeah.
saying the Bionic Bar is not Caribbean, but
I think it fits the vibe of the Quantum class a little bit better because the Quantum class were deemed the smart ships when they came out. So it gives them that futuristic look and the futuristic theming to it all. But like you said, these ships, these Oasis class ships are in the Caribbean 9 times out of 10. And, they've kind of just go for that tropical theme. So I think the Pesky Parrot just kind of gives it a little bit better of a vibe and fits the ships a little bit better.
I agree. Definitely fits the vibe a lot better. That's why you see that they're replacing it on a lot of the ships. So it'll be interesting to see if Wonder gets that replaced in dry dock because they're Allure. Even I think Harmony's getting it. So it just proves that even if they have bionic bars, that they could do it. So it's interesting to note here. But any other final thoughts about the Wonder of the Seas here as we start getting ready to spool down the podcast here? What do you think, Brandon? Any final major thoughts about this class of ship and the ship in general?
We just had another question come in, actually.
Oh, yes.
But any noticeable differences between Icon and Oasis classes? And this is perfect because I have sailed on pretty much all but one Oasis class, and I've done both Star and Icon already, both basically for their maiden seasons. So, but yes, there actually is a pretty substantial difference between the Icon and Oasis Class. It's laid out very similar. You'll kind of have a sense of where you're at on the Icon Class, but it's a completely different feeling between the two. And honestly, like there's just no comparison of anything to the Icon Class. They're just unbelievable ships. But as far as like Surfside with its comparison to Boardwalk, Surfside is basically just a kid-friendly version of Boardwalk, and kind of more of a family-friendly version, I guess. Whereas Central Park is laid out very similarly, but just a little bit more open and spacious. You still have places like Park Cafe, Trellis Bar, and even the Izumi in the Park, Izumi, Hibachi Steakhouse, all that stuff. Like, you're gonna find a lot of similar things, but the actual feeling overall and the differences between the ships are very substantial, especially when it comes to places like Aquadome as well. Aquadome is massive as well. And, it's nothing like the Aqua Theater. The only real similarity between the Aqua Theater and Aquadome is the little pool stage. They're completely different, and they're really, really neat experiences on both ships.
Okay, that's awesome to hear. No, I've never been on the Icon yet. That's definitely in the near future for me. Just looking forward to experiencing that class. But Brandon has excellent experience and insight on between both of those classes. I mean, from the outside, they're kind of noticeable, but they have a lot of the same concepts, right? As you said, they
Right.
have Aqua Theater, different location, but they have Boardwalk 2.0 Surfside.
Yeah.
Royal Promenade Central Park. So it's pretty much the same, but it's like Icon, they like took everything that was great about the Oasis Class and brought it over, and then everything that was kind of like they improved on. So I kind of
Right,
like that.
exactly, and that's exactly what I like to make the comparison with Oasis and Icon Class. Is like it's an Oasis 2.0. It's that if they took the original concept from back in 2006 when they first ordered the ships, and all the way into 2009 when it first came out, they basically started from that point, like ground zero of the Oasis Class. If they did that, but today, you would end up with the Icon Class. And that's kind of what the Icon feels like, is that, like you said, they took everything that was good about the Oasis and just tweaked it to make it a little bit better. And then they took the things that weren't good or needed improvement and improved on that. So, and you kind of see that with Wonder and Utopia as well. I mean, they're significantly different as well, as far as maybe not down low, but on the top level, like 15 and 16, and even the Solarium. Huge differences between Utopia and Wonder to the original 4 Oasis Class ships, just from, and you could kind of tell that Icon has a lot of influence on Utopia and Wonder.
Okay, good deal.
But as you mentioned earlier, closing statements, fantastic ship. I miss Wonder here in Canaveral so much. She's a fantastic ship. I always love the Oasis Class regardless. It was a very great cruise. It was a little bit on the relaxing side for me. There's times where even throughout this podcast, I'm like, man, I didn't do too much, did I? But at the same time, like, I had a great time. I had a fantastic cruise, very nice, relaxing vacation. The ship is still great. She fits in perfectly with Miami. I think she's a great ship to be down there for the 3 and 4 nights. The biggest downside really to the Wonder down in Miami doing these short cruises is that there's so much to do that you don't really have enough time to do it all. And that's kind of the running theme with, my experiences on Utopia as well, is that you really need about a week on these ships to really experience it all. So, but at the same time, they're fantastic ships to do a back-to-back on. If you want to just do a 3-night and then book the 4-night right after it, perfect.
7 nights, there you go.
If you're more interested in the ship than where it's going, then just do that, I guess, But yeah, that's the only downside really to Wonder, is the fact that these 3 and 4 night cruises are just so quick. I mean, it feels like just yesterday I was, waiting to get on board the ship, but now it's already been almost a week since I got on board.
That's crazy. A week, man. That's
Yeah.
time flies.
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely flies by when you're on board these incredible Oasis ships.
And they're stunning. I mean, I'm excited to get back on an Oasis Class
Oh
ship
yeah.
here soon. It's one of the best classes built, besides the Voyager. Of course, I love the Voyager class. Have to sneak it in somehow, folks.
I know you like those Voyager ships.
Have to. Oh, I do, as y'all know, very much.
Yeah.
But as we said, thank you so much, Brandon, for sharing your thoughts here on the Wonder of the Seas 3-night cruise. Appreciate it. Talking to me about that.
Yeah, it's fun, and again, thanks for coming back. Glad to have you back as a co-host more often now, and we should be back next week. I'm not sure of an actual topic just yet, but we should be back next week for another weekly episode. So stay tuned for that.
Figure it out.
The Wonder of the Seas full ship tour video should be out on Friday this week. So if you're watching this past the 21st of November, then go check that out, or just stay tuned for that. And lots of other content as well. We've got 2 ship tours this weekend as well, on board Norwegian Joy and Norwegian Prima, and of course all of the Wonder of the Seas vlogs as well. So lots of really fun content coming up for you guys over the next month or so. And then, yeah, other than that, thank you all for listening, watching, if it's here and live at YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for hanging out and enjoying this podcast. And we'll see you guys next week for another episode. Have a good night.
Good night, folks.